Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saturday Morning RPG Show, a solo show with your host, Jordan, the PH is silent. I just was thinking last night, playing video games. I'm like, even if Lucian isn't available, I want to stream. So I thought I would talk about some news today. It's kind of unprompted, and hopefully, moving forward, I'll be doing more podcasting on the weekends here, just talking about news, answering questions, things like that. So I'm gonna set up a questiony area, maybe in the Discord or maybe in just chat, like live chat, unless you're listening to this in podcast format. But welcome, and let's just talk about some news. And if you guys have any questions you want to throw out there, feel free to put them in the live chat, or there's a YouTube talk area in the Discord that you can visit as well. But welcome. So if you're looking at my overlay, I kind of put this together last minute. I'll make it better for next week, and maybe I'll keep this Saturday Morning RPG Show channel with Lucian, and then I can do solo stuff on the Jocular Junction or something similar. So, but let's talk about some D&D news and what have you. So Vecna of Ruin, or Vecna Eve of Ruin, Vecna Ruined, we'll call it that. No, Vecna Eve of Ruined is out. And it is, reviews are mixed. I hear some people really like it, some people don't. I casually read it. What I'm confused about, though, is now that it's out and we've built up this entire obelisk thing, I feel like the obelisk conspiracy was kind of settled in Phandelver and below, where we learned more information about the obelisk, but it was supposed to tie back to Vecna, and I searched through every page on D&D Beyond in Vecna Eve of Ruin, and I found zero references to the word obelisk. So I'm going to do a more thorough deep dive on it. That's kind of my next idea for a video, is to get like this Vecna, kind of wrap it up with Eve of Ruin and the obelisk conspiracy. But I'm like, that's going to be kind of a letdown if we don't have... if we've been building up this obelisk conspiracy with Vecna and all this other stuff, and then it turns out that it was like, oh, it really wasn't part of that adventure at all. So I was like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But Shozama, welcome, and Elise, welcome. I saw that you re-blue skied my thing, so thank you so much. I haven't talked to you in a while. So it's out. I don't know. I think Ted is playing Eve of Ruin on a live stream, so I've been kind of curious to check that out. We'll see what's going on. So, Quest from the Infinite Staircase comes out July 16th, and I'm more excited for that than I think I should be. It's going to be pretty cool. As I've been replaying Plangia, or replaying 5e, or playing 5e again, I should say, with my Plangia game. Really enjoying... are rediscovering 5e, and so Quest from the Infinite Staircase, pretty exciting, and I want to check out the 5e changes they've made. So DCC Day is July 20th, and the cool thing about this is that DCC Day is cool, but I convinced my local game store to do a DCC event again, and this time we're taking it a little bit more seriously, so hopefully we'll actually get a lot of people signed up. We're gonna do it in the evening and run a bunch, like 3 or 4 tables of DCC games all at the same time, so it should be a lot of fun. I am really excited that they're on board, which means that we get the adventures early. We can like read through them, so we know how to do this. The other cool thing about DCC Day is Goodman Games is really doubling down on their third-party adventures. I think this might be in response to trying to attract other game designers to Dungeon Crawl Classics. You know, a lot of people will make stuff for 5e, but Goodman Games will buy a lot of your third-party adventures so that they have them in stock in their store, and that's very attractive to publishers and authors, because they're like, oh, if I write this, I know right away that I'm going to sell X amount straight to Goodman Games. So the fact that they are including a third-party DCC adventure in DCC Day, I think that means that they bought a bunch of those third-party adventures and are putting it into DCC Day. That's great exposure for third-party publishers. That's great for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I mean, that's just really cool of Goodman Games to do that. So I think that's why. And they're working really hard on getting more people to like write stuff for DCC. So I think you should go check that out for sure. And call your store and see if you can get DCC Day at your store. July 20th. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a Saturday. Or number 8. So, hello everybody in chat. So, or number 8, is going to be Caverns of Thracia. And I have not read this module. It's one of the Janelle Jaquay modules, and she passed away recently. And kind of in honor of her, because the last or number 7 was the Dark Tower, and that was also hers, or she like helped work on that one. And so one of the adventures that Goodman Games published for Dungeon Crawl Classics has like a picture of her on the front, which is really cool. It was kind of like, hey, this is an important person in the history of tabletop RPGdom. And the next one is Caverns of Thracia. Now, these are not tied to TSR / Wizards of the Coast, so they're able to make them for 5e, and they're able to make them for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and they're able to make them available for longer, because I think the license ran out, so we can't get the reprints of Ors 1 through 5, I believe, which is really sad. And I put out a video on the main channel, I think, that Caverns of, or the Lost Cavern is like going for $400 on eBay and stuff. Don't buy it for that, but it's kind of ridiculous because they're becoming collector's items all of a sudden. Like, you can't get them, so now people are interested in getting them. Anyway, this will come out in October of 2024, and one of the reasons I think that Caverns of Thracia is so cool is specifically Kelsey from I almost said the wrong thing. Arcane Library, who made Shadow Dark. She said this was one of the most like influential dungeon crawlers that ever crossed her path. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here, and she thinks it's really cool. So for me, Dark Tower was interesting, but this feels like a more iconic piece of like RPG history, and I would be very curious to pick this up and then run through it. But yeah. So coming on the heels of Dark Tower, they're going to do this. This is another Judges Guild project, but like it's huge apparently. So, but October is a ways away. They're going to have a Kickstarter for it, I'm assuming, because that's what they do, or a backer kit, you know, the crowdfunding. It's what they do. Shozama says we should have all bought 2 of the Lost City and then sell one and recoup your not losses, but recoup your money. So for sure. D&D Beyond partner content is growing. I think this has never been an effort for, I think Wizards of the Coast. Let me back up. I think Wizards of the Coast really liked being just the silent like deity in the sphere, where they would like, I've thought of something, and then other people would respond, and they wouldn't have to actually like interact with others. But Wizards of the Coast is really making an effort to kind of partner with other people now, and to acknowledge that D&D is a bigger thing than the brand that they hold on to. And so 5e as a whole has taken off, and if they want to, they can either be a part of that group or they can be not a part of that group. And it was made very apparent because of the OGL debacle. I was listening to Sly Flourish, and he always talks about these candles. Like, here is a candle that is like the health and survivability of 5e. And D&D Beyond partnered content is like, hey, Critical Role, that kind of makes sense that they were going to do that. Kobold Press, a little surprised about that. MCDM, awesome that he's getting there, because Matt Colville has been very vocal, or he's not unvocal about his, like, you're being a crappy company, you know? But I don't think he outwardly says it, but like, he's got his opinions, and he's a very opinionated person. And then interesting enough, James Introcaso did all the interviews on D&D, on the Wizards of the Coast YouTube channel when they were talking about Flea Mortals and stuff like that. I'm sad the Beastmaster isn't, or the Beast Heart isn't on there, because I have a player playing a Beast Heart in a Pangea game, and it would be really cool if it was integrated into D&D Beyond. But I've also said that I'm not interested in using D&D Beyond anymore. I feel like a lot of my, I feel like a lot of my players, when I get new players especially, and I try to get them to use D&D Beyond, half of the battle is trying to teach them the interface of D&D Beyond rather than just the game. So I have one player that really wants to use it in my Pangea game, but since Pangea is not on D&D Beyond, we're not using it, so he's kind of doing his own thing, and that's fine. If you want to like make custom items and make it work, that's great, do it. But it's not necessarily for me. Dungeon Dudes was of course the first, and Ghostfire Gaming. I think the interesting ones to me are Kobold Press, MCDM, and Ghostfire Gaming, because Dungeon Dudes and Critical Role have always been very tied to D&D 5e, and I guess Kobold Press is also very tied to D&D 5e, but they were also really vocal about doing something different during the OGL debacle. So it's kind of cool, but like it's more revenue for them. It's revenue for D&D Beyond. If you're going to use 5e, that is a tool to use it on. I think the more virtual tabletops that pop up, the less I'm inclined to buy stuff on a specific VTT. And D&D Beyond was the one of choice for a long time, but like now I'm like, I just want a book and a PDF, because I'm tired of, I don't own it in this format, I own it in this format. And I'm like, if it's a PDF, maybe I can make my own stuff if we want to use a VTT, but yeah. Again, I just like playing at my table, so I'm going to play at my table some more. It's kind of the thing. So yeah. There was a Gold Dragon redesign. I feel like people were freaking out about this, but they're probably not actually freaking out. I just think it's like some of the only news that we've been getting. And maybe they released this Gold Dragon redesign because the cover of the Player's Handbook 2024 looked off to me and a bunch of other people. Everyone was like, what is the dimensions of this dragon? And I have a picture of it here. Yeah, so this is from comicbook.com. Again, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, they're not looking to work with smaller distribution things. They want to work with like IGN and comicbook.com, things like that. These big, massive places that are going to go out, things like that. So this is the redesign, and it's apparently more of like a mythical Chinese gold dragon that they're doing. And that's cool. I think it looks awesome, especially this art here down at the bottom, like this whole like fluid kind of aerodynamic, not aerodynamic, but like fluid movement through the air is really cool. So they also were saying that a bunch of them are going to get redesigns. And then somebody found that there was the Dritz visual history book that isn't out yet. I could be wrong. And this had more dragons. So like, here's a white dragon that had some information on it. And it looks not dissimilar to what I remember in the PHB, but like, I could be wrong. And then a black dragon has like the iconic skull kind of face. This is a blue dragon, which looks different to me when the electricity on the tail. Green dragons have maple leaf shaped wings, which is kind of like, okay. This one does feel different and feels very jungly, and I think maybe it's just the face there. And these also are probably tying back into the Dicelings, is what this Imager post was talking about on Reddit specifically. And then, Green Dragon redesign in Fizbin. So this is Fizbin's Treasury of Dragons. This is also Fizbin's. That's why those look normal. So, and then the Red Dragon got a re-release picture as well. And yeah, this guy just fits more with Themberchad and other dragons that we've had from Game Informer. So, I don't know. I mean, dragons are an important part of Dungeons and Dragons. It's half of the game. But I was curious why people were flocking to it, I guess. I don't know. This is also going to affect minis, I assume. There's going to be a whole new line of minis, and so people will be excited for that. So kind of exciting with that. I wanted to talk about crowdfunding. So there are a lot of crowdfunding stuff happening in the world, and actually, before we do that, I wanted to talk about Tales of the Valiant. I had this interesting thought I was like, is Tales of the Valiant out? So I didn't kickstart this because I knew it was going to be successful. I knew it was going to be available, and I was like tight on money and things like that. So I did not buy Tales of the Valiant, but I will pick up the PDF when it's released. And I was thinking to myself, is it released? Because if you go to Tales of the Valiant, you have this buy now button and the Monster Vault and the player's guide. But I looked here and it looks like it will be released in June 2024. I don't know when in June, but that's, 6 days away. So this will be very interesting to deep dive and go through. And then it'll be also very interesting when the 2024 PHB comes out. And I wonder how many bloggers and YouTubers are going to compare apples to oranges and see what's going on. It got me thinking about doing a Squid Games of people who are playing D&D 2024 characters and people who are playing Tales of the Valiant characters, and put them in a big pit and see who survives. I don't know, or like versus the same monster, which one works out better. That is kind of ambitious. I don't know if I'll actually get the time to do that, but I like the idea of it. So it's kind of neat. So this comes out next month. And I don't know exactly when next month, but yeah. And I've been following a couple of the things. I know they've got their own versions, and the PDFs might actually be out for the backers. And we're just waiting for like the actual, you can buy this now. So we'll see. Yes, backing up to crowdfunding. So crowdfunding. My goal with this is my goal with this new segment, I guess, is there are big things to talk about in the tabletop RPG world, and I'll probably cover those big things, but I also wanted to cover some like little things that I thought were kind of interesting. And so right now on BackerKit, there is a Kickstarter or a BackerKit crowdfunding thing for the Wayward Gazette, which is Weird Frontiers zines. And I love, there, your Huckleberry. So Weird Frontiers is a offshoot of Dungeon Crawl Classics that is set in a weird west. And if you've ever heard or played in Deadlands, whether that's the original Deadlands or I think the Savage Worlds Deadlands that they remade it in, it's an interesting setting where, what was it, right after the Civil War in the United States, history diverged into a new route. And so all of the soldiers in the Civil War who died, a lot of them ended up rising back up as zombies, and something weird happened in America to make it the Weird West. And so you are set in a Western setting, but with a lot of like fantasy and demons and things like that, but you still have guns and revolvers. So Weird Frontiers feels... The Weird West is at home with Dungeon Crawl Classics, I feel. And I played in a Deadlands game, and I like the mythology of it a lot. I think it's kind of cool. Like we went out, when I played it, we played the original Deadlands. This was many, many years ago. We played it out there. And there are giant bat demons that fly around, and we had to like kill a giant bat demon. And my wife was playing a religious person that could heal people with like a touch and stuff. And there's a lot of like invoking Native American magic or your like Hebrew god to save you. And I thought it was interesting to use modern day religions in a fantasy RPG. Kind of reminds me of the Dresden Files in that sense, where you could have like the arcane guy, and then I think there's like a holy avenger guy, if I remember reading the books. So this is supporting Weird Frontiers. If you want that, you can go get that book out. I actually did a video on the Jocular Junction about Weird Frontiers. And I only have the PDF. It's a beefy PDF. And from what I've heard, some people were saying they should have done a little more playtesting to make it a little thinner, but I think the guy wanted the book to have everything in it. You know, it's a really like passion project. And so this is just a little extra thing. You can have some extra adventures. I think there are some new, well, let's read here. What do we have? Compatible with Dungeon Crawl Classics. One-shot scenarios for your Weird Frontiers game. And so there's just some like little zines of like adventures and stuff. And so if you needed some extra fun for your Weird Frontiers game, like this is what I'm talking about. He's got like a cross on his belt and his chest, and he's got holding a gun. Part of me finds that very, very fun. So this art is amazing. One-shot style scenarios that you can just drop in. So pretty exciting. There should be some links down below, but I'll put it in the chat as well. I have not specifically backed this yet. Probably because I'm not going to play Weird Frontiers, but I thought it was interesting enough to bring it to your attention. So the other interesting crowdfunding that I saw, and I actually know about this, is DC20. So the Dungeon Coach, he's on YouTube. He makes interesting... he makes videos about Dungeons & Dragons, and he also started developing his own game after the OGL debacle. He was just like, I'm done with this. And so I remember he sent me an email and he was like, I'm going to start working on a new game. It's going to be awesome. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I do not have time for that. You do you, enjoy. And he committed and he started making it. So last year at Gen Con, he invited me to play in a one-shot playtest of DC20. I don't know if it's Dungeon Coach 20, it is, but that's the name of this RPG. And I went in very skeptical, and when I actually played it, we left, and I'm like, that was really fun. Like, that was amazingly fun, and it felt super balanced and it was just interesting and fresh and new. So I'm sure it's evolved and changed from that. And I should say up front that, Dungeon Coach is a friend of mine. And he actually did buy a promo for when this goes out on the main channel. But this is just me wanting to talk about it because I think it's worth your attention. So of all the other ones out there, Tales of the Valiant and MCDM's RPG that's coming out at some point. Critical Role is making, Daggerheart, like that's coming out. There's going to be so many options. But I think this is also worth your attention. Probably because I played it. And probably because I like supporting the smaller creators sometimes, especially when those smaller creations deserve to be elevated. And so I'm really curious about this. I think it'll be super awesome. That comes out June 4th in a couple weeks, or the Kickstarter launches then. So you should definitely check that out as well. And yeah, if you guys have, Fabula Ultima, you're right, Grenar. I haven't played Fabula Ultima, but it's kind of like a Final Fantasy RPG. And that's another thing I didn't get to talk about really, is that there is a Final Fantasy 14 RPG that I'm waiting for a review from Linda Kodega, who was really excited for it. And then she tweeted after that she got a press release that it says, oh no. And I think she's just like, oh, like we'll see what her review is, but apparently it wasn't as good as she was expecting, which is sad. I played Final Fantasy 11 for many years, more years than I should have. And I dipped my toe into 14, but I was also kind of like done with Final Fantasy 14 at that point. But Fabula Ultima is a very JRPG tabletop role-playing game, and I know, Grenar, you've been playing it, and it looks like it's a lot of fun. Oh, you did share the review. I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Drunken Yoda. I'll check that out a little bit later. So that is interesting. What have I been up to? So I've been playing Planegea 5e. I think I'm done with my Planegea videos. Those did better than I anticipated. I kind of just wanted to do them because I was actively playing in the world and I thought it was really cool. And it was fun to see a positive vibe. Like, a lot of people were like, I've never heard of this. This is amazing. And I was like, it's pretty great. So my 5e Planegea game is moving forward, but summer and people are People are excited about doing summer things and traveling. So we finished up like Act 1 and we started Act 2, and I think we're not going to play again until like mid-June. So it's going to turn into I don't know, like it's going to turn into a when can we play kind of game, which is fine. And then I'll try to utilize that time to do some playtesting, I think, either online or in real life for other things. Another thing, though, is that I'm part of a local group now of RPG players, and we got together realizing that we all like OSR, DCC, indie games. And so one of the guys was like, hey, I really like Forbidden Lands, and I've been running it for a while online, but I want to try it in real life. And so we've been meeting in that. And so I've got a goblin hunter who has a pet boar. We kind of like run around. And it's a very interesting game. I remember when I got Forbidden Lands, I was like, is this going to be like the new 5e kind of, oh my gosh, it's going to take over. But the more I play it, the more I think the Year Zero engine is not what I want out of an RPG. And this kind of goes into my next section, is I've been rewriting Modular D6. And for those of you who don't know, Modular D6 is one of the many RPG products that I have been working on. I shouldn't say product, but like it's just like hacking, tinkering stuff. Originally, I was inspired by Open D6, which is the West End Games Star Wars system, Ghostbusters system. They used it for everything. And then towards the end of West End Games, they stripped out all of the intellectual property, and instead of Star Wars West End Games, it's now Space D6, and instead of whatever else, it's now Fantasy D6, or it's Modern D6. I don't know, they have a whole bunch of them, but you can go to there is a website. If you search Open D6, you'll find it. I think it's the Open D6 project, but like they put it into the OGL, and now it's available and you can use it for whatever you want. And I was really inspired by that because I like the idea that everybody has D6s because of board games and stuff. You could sit down, you could try and play it, and to be different. So going back, Forbidden Lands, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. But playing Forbidden Lands and workshopping Modular D6 really puts it into perspective of like, what does Jordan want out of an RPG? And what I want out of an RPG as a player versus as a GM, I'm discovering is very different. So as a player, and I think a lot of players feel like this, I want to do cool things. I want to sit down and I want to be able to cast that spell. When I was playing 5e, my last character was a wizard, and I asked the DM if I could make my own spells because I really liked that idea. So I was a conjuration wizard, so we made a spell where I could conjure like a big hammer and smack somebody on the head with it. And then as a bonus action, I could call it again and kind of do that over and over. And it was like, okay, that's kind of fun, and it uses your concentration. But I want to have those moments for my character where I do cool stuff. But as a GM, I really like when the players can contribute to the story, and doing a cool thing does not necessarily equal making the story move forward or interacting with it in a good way. So 5e is a good example where I want to do 5e is a good example where I want to play a superhero, and I want to do cool stuff, and I want my dungeon master to put me in a scenario where I'm able to utilize the cool thing that I want to do. Like another 5e character I made was just like an anti-magic bard. Everything was like counterspell and dispel magic and anti-magic, and if you're concentrating on a spell, I took that feat where I can get advantage on melee attacks against you and stuff. But then after I made that, I'm like, this is so cool. My dungeon master never put me in a situation where I could be cool with it, you know, because he wasn't thinking, let's let Jordan, I don't know, have this creative event where he's able to like finally utilize all his class and see what it can do. Instead, I was just kind of like a less powerful bard because I didn't take the things that made me powerful. So as I'm writing Modular D6, I keep thinking, what do I want as a player? and what do I want as a game master, and how can I merge those into a single game? And we'll see. So I was talking with Phil on the Discord. He's a new guy who dropped into our Discord, and we were just talking about RPG design, and he pointed me to, I think it's not basic role-playing. It's got a hexagon on the cover. Why can't I think of it? All right, I'll think about it later. But an RPG that's been out for a while, it's got a new edition. It's got a 6th edition out. I ended up buying the 5th edition because it was more condensed, and I wanted that. For those of you talking, it wasn't a spiritual weapon. It was called sorry. They were asking me about my wizard's conjuration spell. We called it Josh's Conjured Weapon, and it was a bonus action to cast the spell, and I could summon a weapon in my hand and then use my action to do an attack with it that used my intelligence. And then on my turn, I could use an action, but I think I made it so that I could use an action to attack twice. So, Shozama, it was the hero system. Thank you. So I have that spell listed somewhere. I'll try to put it out there. I think it's out there, but I'll put it on the Patreon or in the chat of the Discord. So it was the hero system, and we were talking about how complicated the hero system was, but that he's getting so inspired from it. And that made me think about Forbidden Lands and how I am getting inspired by playing Forbidden Lands and going over a couple of other things where I'm like, I just don't think this system works for me as a player. Forbidden Lands might work really well for me as a game master, but as a player, I'm getting a little frustrated that I fail a lot and I have to push my rolls. If you're unfamiliar with the Year Zero system, you only succeed on a 6, and every skill or attack you roll is a big dice pool where you drop multiple D6 in based on your stat, and then anything that is a 6 is a success. And you're not looking for like multiple successes, you're just looking for one success. And so you can roll a whole bunch of them and get nothing, and it's kind of frustrating. So they put in a system where you can push. And so then I push and I re-roll a few of them, hoping to get hoping to land on a 6. You can only push once, and if you do push, you can take damage, and that's kind of how you also level up and things. I should look. I have enough experience now that I can level up, but I was confused by it. So, long story short, as I'm just like blabbering on, I'm really thinking about modular D6, and I'm really rewriting it by hand. And when I write it by hand in a notebook, it really makes me look at like, is that actually make sense? Like, is that going to work out? So the collective we, Jordan with a silent PH, is going to playtest this a lot. I think it's finally at a point where I can playtest it. I'm going to make a small 5-room dungeon and run some of my friends through it and just be like, what do you think about this? And then I'll also kind of find some glaring problems. But I think I'm past the stage where I am rolling dice by myself in my basement being like, yeah, I think that works, you know? And it's been a lot of fun. So the other thing is, I think it needs a new name. What do I call? Because originally I liked the idea of it was a classless system for modular D6, and so I build my character and then I purchase these modules either with experience or maybe from a setting, like a fantasy setting. I only purchase fantasy modules. And then taking those modules, you build a unique character. So I was kind of trying to create a way for people to be the super healer or the half healer, or maybe like the Gish. Like that's kind of what it always comes down to. Like I want to cast magic, but I also want to have a cool spell. And that's the goal, is to not have classes, but you pick modules based on your play style. And you could probably you can make like an overpowered character going in one direction, or you can make an underpowered character going in the other direction. We'll see how it works out and how many modules, but then it's expandable. Like I could make a supplement that's like, for this adventure, you can have these modules, or for this one, you could have this. And I kind of like that idea. So we'll see if it plays out in reality. We don't know exactly. So a couple people in chat are asking about GURPS, and I have looked at GURPS, and GURPS is also very overwhelming, kind of like Hero System, where there's a lot going on there. And yes, you can do like everything in GURPS, but I think it's unobtainable for the average player, because even if I was super hardcore into Hero System or GURPS, trying to find players that will also be that on board would be very problematic. And it's easier for me to sell a game based on not the system, but the setting. And I think Pangea is a great example of that, where I was like, hey, I have this kind of like prehistoric thing. And a lot of my friends were like, they knew 5e, so they wanted to jump on. But the majority of my players at this table currently with 5e don't play RPGs. And they were just excited about playing an RPG, for the first time, but also for the setting. And so they were like, yeah. And I was like, no, and I know 5e enough. I can totally teach you. We're going to start at level 3 rather than level 1, but you'll catch up really well, blah, 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 blah. And so GURPS is like, let's make one system to rule them all kind of a thing. And I think 5e also wants that to be the thing where like, let's make one system to rule them all. But I really like the idea of like, hey, I want to do like Kids on Bike 2nd edition just came into the mail yesterday for me. And so it's like, I want to tell this story. Here's the system. I'll help you along with it. And so Pangea was like that, where I'm like, I want to tell a story in this setting. And if I think about modular D6, it, rather than like reflavoring a bunch of stuff, I like that there would be, well, maybe I'm talking about this now where I'm talking about riffs and GURPS, but like where I have like a base system, but then it's like, if I pick up prehistoric world, I could have the modules that apply to that prehistoric world for modular D6 and make it good. And that's probably riffs, and maybe it's probably GURPS as well. And I'm reinventing the wheel when I come to think about it, but also those games are far too complicated for me. The Riffs art is amazing, and Riffs itself is really cool, where there's all these multiple universes and worlds and kind of pocket things. Side note though about Monte Cook Games, what was their cipher system one? Oh, The Strange. So The Strange does very similar things with Riffs, I feel, where you would transfer between a modern setting, a sci-fi setting, and a fantasy setting. And it was the idea that your character kind of like shifts through all three of those. And since making The Strange, the new Cypher System core rulebook is just like, here's the core rulebook, and then you can buy their Weird West version, or the new one is Practical Magic, which is coming out. They have a superhero one, they have another one. And so they kind of took the idea of The Strange, which was one game where you went through fantasy, sci-fi, or modern, and they're now breaking it up into books. So if I want to play fantasy, I buy, I think it's Godforsaken and the core rulebook, and I can play that. Or if I want to play modern, I can buy the core rulebook and I can play Practical Magic, and now we're going to play in like a modern. And that utilizes the Cypher System. Moa Peach, you asked if the Cypher System is good, and like, is it good? And it is, very much so. I've played Numenera enough that I really do enjoy it. From a GM perspective, I really like the idea of it, where I can, again, like what Jordan wants in a game as a dungeon master or as a game master is a way to craft stories and a way to get the players to be invested in those stories. If I was a player in a Numenera game or a Cypher System, I don't know how I would play. I've never been I have been a player in it, but I want to do the cool thing. So yeah, there was a Dresden Files tabletop RPG. I don't know much about it. I think there were a couple. I think one involved Fate and one involved a D20 system, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I like that model. I think it's kind of cool. So we'll see if it works out. Modular D6. Oh, and that kind of comes down to like, does it need a new name? So maybe we'll put out a poll, like who wants to name modular D6 for me? Like, I like making logos and stuff, so I totally made a logo for modular D6, and it's I was like, nah, I should call it something else. Call it the Jorphdan RPG. We'll just pull an MCDM and just be like Jorphdan RPG. There you go. So, yeah. Thanks, guys, for visiting. That's kind of all I have, unless you guys have some questions to talk about at the end. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But I will say, like, game designing is fun. Like, it's really interesting. And I remember Ben Milton said a long time ago that a lot of the OSR folks, you play RPGs enough till you start being like, well, I want to hack them apart. And you, like, hack it up. And then all of a sudden you come up with your own version, and now you're going to make your own dungeon, your own dungeon crawler kind of game. And there you go, like that. So, yeah. Mo Peach, have I completed Mechagoons? Yes. Mechagoons is done. I will maybe add and update it here and there, based on testing, or not based on testing, but just based on like feedback. But I decided not to charge anything for it. It is on my itch and it is free. There is the new consolidated like 2-page version. So I was working on my layout skills, and I didn't steal, I borrowed because they gave me permission to use it. But there was a layout from another game that I took, and I adapted that into Mecha D6 or Mecha Goons. Yeah. So you can totally go and pick that up. So Mechagoons is there for free. It's on jordan.itch.io. So jorphdan.itch.io. You can go check that out. Follow me there. I actually have an older version of Modular D6 uploaded there, so I'll be releasing that soon for free as well. I think it just needs playtesting for free right now. And then when I actually get art and spend more money than just my own personal time, I'll be able to make it better. And then maybe I'll charge then. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe the core rules will be free. I don't know what I'm doing. I like the Karen approach of just give it away. But I also like the idea of being able to pay some bills with all the time and effort I put into things. But I don't want to be greedy. But if people want to buy something, then let them buy it, I guess, like I kind of like that idea. And usually when it comes down to that, it's art. Like if I'm spending money for art and things like that, then I want to recoup what I did. So yeah. What conventions am I going to? So right now money is tight and I have a ticket to Gen Con, but I don't have a place to stay yet. So Gen Con is up in the air until I find a place to stay. And if that place is within my budget if it's within my budget, which is it's not a high budget. So I really need somebody to take pity on me, but I do have friends in, Indianapolis, and I asked them if I could stay with them, and they are actually moving, so I can't stay with them. So I was like, okay, well that cuts into some things, but we're going to talk further. They might have like a friend of a friend I could stay with, and we'll see. Maybe I'll make some new friends. Or I'm going to check with some other YouTubers and podcasters and be like, does anybody need a roommate? And kind of figure out from there. I really like being close to the convention because it is tiring and overwhelming, and sometimes I just need to go back to my room and take a nap. And I noticed that a couple years ago when I went, I guess it was like 2019, I was so far away from the convention that taking a nap just like wasn't an option. And I was just, I don't know, it was overwhelming and exhausting. And I'm like, I just want to go back to my room in the middle of the afternoon when nothing's going on, sleep, and then wake up and come back out. So that is a potential. And then I really want to go to PAX Unplugged. So I saw how much fun Bob Worldbuilder and Ted had at PAX Unplugged last time. And so I was like, man, I really want to go to that. So that's on my distant list because that's in December. But again, we'll see how money is. The holidays are rough. My significant other is taking some vacations, so that's going to cost money. And yeah, so we just kind of have to like balance it out. But that's the thing. So you were talking to another DM who spends $50 on food and drinks, but the players don't contribute. If I show up to a game, I usually bring something for the table. If I am running a game, I provide water. And I guess I just have really nice friends who do show up with drinks and cookies and various snacks and things like that. Nobody's bringing dinner for the whole table, but they do like contribute. And some people don't because they're just like, I don't know, but they also don't really eat a lot of cookies. And so they're just like, yeah, I just came here to play. And so I think if you're running a game, especially if you're hosting the game at your house, I would never expect my players to bring stuff, but I also would not expect them to think that I'm going to feed them. So that's kind of how I feel. So yeah, if you're going to be at PAX Unplugged, let me know. I will try my best to be there. Let's go back to, here we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I might bounce right now. If I do these further, I might leave the Saturday morning RPG channel here for me and Lucian, and maybe I'll live stream over on the Jocular Junction on Saturday mornings. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Kind of this same format, just like chatting, hanging out, talking about the news. Maybe every other week, let news build up, or if there's a news something happening, that might be fun. But I like the idea. I miss streaming. I miss talking to you guys, and what have you. So, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Saturday Morning RPG Show. You can support me by going to Patreon or itch.io or all of the other fun places, or just subscribing and hanging out. I really value all the support you guys have been giving me, and I hope you enjoy the videos and the other stuff that I make. And other stuff that I'm making for whatever. Oh, member for 26 months. Thank you so much, Mo Peach. You're awesome. You've been a huge support for a long time. So let's do an emoji to that. Huzzah. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week, if not before. But thank you so much for watching, and play some awesome games. Take care, everybody.